This is the Firecat Podcast, and I am Nick,
I'm Christian.
And Mario Garcia.
and we are doing the China's one-child policy.
The one child policy is one family in China can only have one child due to the huge population in China.
But there's like a lot of bans to the rule in there. That like in urban areas, for sure, there can only be one child. But in like rural areas, you can have two because there's not that many population there.
Yeah, or it depends on if you're wealthy or not, because then you could pay the fees because there are fees.
The fine.
Yeah, the fines. But if you're unfortunate in that area, you will have to pay that fine, and those fines can be subject to jail time. So the Chinese feel kind of disrespected. After reading all these news articles, there was one article on the New York Times, and they talked about how the Chinese personally feel after interviewing some of them, and most of them were acted towards the policy as a very negative thing, which was kind of expected because most of them feel like they should have their own options in how many children they should have, if they should have one, two, or three, or how many they want. It shouldn't be restricted by this one-child policy.
And according to this article by Susan Sit, it says family would prefer to have males since it's more likely that the males will take care of them once they grow up than the females, because the females, once they get married, there will be a responsibility to the husband family instead of their own family.
Another thing about the one-child policy law is that it's really bended towards having males. Like for instance, if you have a female in some places in China as your first child, you're allowed to try again to get a male.
But doesn't it also apply if your first child was disabled?
Yeah, it does. I think it's if your first person disabled, you're allowed to try it twice actually, because for them it isn't see if it's male or female.
Because it goes back to what I just said about how the male in the family will help the family. Okay, but if you have triplets or more than 3 babies, then the rule doesn't really apply to the one-child policy since it was naturally born. If it's naturally born.
Yeah, but do you think that, what you just said right there, do you think that, affects how these families are, viewing their daughters?
Well, I don't know. If they have girls and males, then no. But if they have all girls, then probably yes, because I don't think they'll give a second chance to them because they already have more than one child, isn't it?
True, but also from what I saw in one of these articles is that most of these families, they either disrespect their daughters, or the families look down upon for having multiple girls, or even having one girl.
I think to the idea Mario said earlier that the society is more dominated by males. So I guess having more males, if you do manage to have 2 males, if you overcome the fine and everything, I guess we're looked up upon, because the society more focuses on males than females because the males are more respected and they have political jobs and make more money than girls, I would assume.
Yeah, this is really similar to how the U.S. was back in 1940s, right? 1930s.
Yeah.
When females were just expected to stay at home, and we just see this history repeating itself, but just in a different culture.
But more recent as well.
Yeah, which is why it's such a big outcry now with all this media. It allows all this very big lash of what China is doing to these families.
Especially how we have views today, feminism and other things. It's from my point of view, it's really backwards and backwards in time, from the 1940s, even though they're doing it currently.
Well, let's think about this. Does this respect the human rights of Chinese people? Well, say you're a third child that was born from them. Will you be considered a people to them, a person to them? Will you consider to have human rights?
Yeah, but it depends on if you're a guy or a girl. Because if you're a guy, then you have some type of value.
Either way, if they're a male or female, they would still have to pay the fine. So I guess economically, it would still count as a person.
But let's say if you do have a third child, they could take away your child or possibly even kill it, and that is one of our human rights, isn't it? The right to live.
I mean, assuming that they pay the fine, I doubt they would experience much trouble.
But consider if you're not a rich family, you can't pay the fine. So what happens to the child then?
From the child, if like you're not a rich family, I think like you're talking about in rural areas.
Well, it doesn't really pour into the rural areas because it's not strictly implied in the rural areas because they don't like not a lot of people live in the rural areas, don't they? It's going to be more crowded in the urban areas.
I mean, there's like I think 47% rural areas in China.
Yeah, but it's not. Well, compared to how crowded it would be in the city than the rural area, because China is a large place, and considering that the rural areas are like inhabited to a lot of people, it will consider the third child to be probably a little slight off. But I'm saying, what happens if you are a third child and you're in the urban area? Will you be considered still to right to live, even
Like-
though you can consider the law was created to decrease the population.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
But you want to go or do you want to? I'll take
Just
it.
go.
But and from what you were saying there is that the third child, right? And if they would be like worse, like
Considered human.
human, of course they'll be considered human, but they'll be disrespected or looked down upon. Even their family will probably look down upon because for birthing them, it's not really their fault for being born. It's mostly the family's fault. So mostly it's gonna be the family taking the hate for that one.
Yeah, and like I guess like in the school thing, in the school sense, like if you were to have that third child go to school, you'd probably get picked on, like just as a bully.
Or maybe not even get bullied, not even have the right to go to school.
True.
I mean,
But think about it.
assuming like it's like, were you, like in your question, are you assuming that like this urban family who has a third child, are they like rich or poor?
Well, let's say they're rich. They're
They're rich, yeah. They're gonna get respected either way. Like,
yeah, but if you're poor, like it depends how well you do. Like if you're a smarter child, you'll get advanced, right? Like depending.
True, but going back to what you're saying is like if you're rich, then you're gonna be like okay because you guys they're meant as like the rich family, so they're able to have it. But if you're poor, then you're not gonna be able to pay these fines, and
Well, it depends on the government, doesn't it? Like they could take your child away.
they can.
They can.
yeah, if you don't pay the fine.
Well, that's what I'm saying about the people in poverty. They don't have enough to pay for the
Yeah,
fine.
but going back to what I said, like rural areas, they don't really enforce that law.
Well, okay,
that
well, let's
much.
say you're a poor family in an urban city. How would it be?
I think like they're like just in general, like they enforce the law like more in urban areas than they do in rural areas because in urban areas there's like cities and there's like overcrowded parking and like everything. So in like urban areas, I would assume that you wouldn't probably if like going to a third child, it's like pretty big because I'm pretty sure there would still be folks on a second child if you even have one.
So going on a different note from all of what we've been talking about, I want to also take a touch on is that they're making a new policy right now. I'm not sure if you guys heard about this, but it's pretty recent right now where they're allowing people, well, most families to have 2 children without fines or any type of fees they have to pay. Where they can have a second child just as long as both parents of that child are single
So
siblings.
So like the first family, let's say they have one child, and those 2 childs are just only child. But if they're getting married, they can have 2 childs.
True.
So I think for your so like that was kind of complicated, but to simplify it, it's like if like 2 people like have a kid, if they can have 2 kids, if one of those parents were
No.
an only child, isn't that it?
No,
Yeah.
both parents. both parents are only child.
No, that used to be the old law. If both parents were only childs, they can have 2 kids without fines. But now they're changing it to if only one of the parents was an only child,
Yeah.
they can have a kid.
Okay.
2 kids.
It's kind of unfair to other families that say the father has a brother and say the mother has a sister or a brother, and they're only allowed to have 1 child. Where both parents that don't have siblings, they're allowed to have 2 child. It's kind of unfair to the other family, wouldn't it be?
Or I mean, like before the new policy, it's just basically about money. I'm pretty sure like the fine in general, there's a lot. Like, because if rich families can like just take it and if not affect them, then I guess it'd be nothing. But like I guess the poor families, like it would be like immense or something.
I think that also why they started this newer policy where they're allowing multiple kids to have, well, multiple people to have kids, is because they realize that if people have more kids, then they're gonna also have more production and sales with like baby products, kid products, teenage products. Everything is gonna boost up in sales because there's gonna be more demand for it. So that's basically what's going on right here. So
Well, the China policy is gonna be a very tough one for people to decide when it be.
sure.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's all for tonight.
Yeah, you guys got nothing else to say?
Nope.
No.
Okay, so this is the Firecat podcast and signing out.